My guest is my niece from up in Northeast Pennsylvania, Wayne County. First, just a little bit about you, what your background is, and maybe what led you into what you're doing right now. Go ahead.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Cheryl. I'm 58 years old. I have a degree in criminal justice and a degree in psychology. I've always, right out of college, I worked at Friendship House Children's Center, and that's where I got my love of children. My husband and I have been married for 33 years. We have 4 children, 2 bio children, adults. Abby is 29, Hannah is 27, and then we have 2 adopted children. KP is 17 and Ruby is 8. I would like to mention right here that Ruby was born the day after I turned 50. So you're never too old to adopt. You're never too old to foster. I have an in-home daycare. I've been doing daycare since 1998. I started daycare, and we've been fostering since 2006. We've had over 60 children in our home. We've fostered over 60 children. We absolutely love it. We haven't had anybody in the last 3 years. Our last placement was actually February of 2020 was our last placement, and he was with us for 5 months. We had him through COVID, which was quite difficult, but with all the everything going on with COVID, but we got through that. And that's about it for background. I got into this when I graduated from college. My first job was at Friendship House Children's Center. And that's, as I said, that's where I got my love of children. I worked in a girls' cottage, and I was a residential counselor, and we were the parents. We took care of the children after school. I worked like the 3 to 11 shift. We made dinner. We took them roller skating on Friday nights. We did all that. So that's where I got my love for children. So then here we are today.
Oh my!
I actually wanted to start out I originally wanted to be a parole officer. That's where I wanted to go. But that was high school, and then through college I changed my mind and got more interested in the psychology field. And then, like I said, my internship was a step-by-step, and I really liked that. And then I just went to children, and when I worked at Friendship House, and then it just didn't stop.
So when you worked at Friendship House, how did that then lead into you staying home? Because you left that and started your, is it a preschool or a daycare?
It's a daycare. I'm a family daycare. So the state of Pennsylvania says that I can have 6 children at any given time, which I do. I have 6 children every day, unrelated to me. The way I got into daycare, but I'll back up and start there, is I worked at Friendship House. I actually got burnt out at Friendship House after 3 years. That was a really tough job. Brought the work home with me. Some of the kids came to our wedding even. I don't know if you remember, some of the kids were at our wedding from Friendship House that I worked with. It was just a very difficult, those were the children back in the day. It was like a residential program. They don't have them so much anymore, where they're putting the kids into homes instead of the group homes. But it was like a group home, and it was for children who, they weren't being fostered. They were probably a little more difficult. Back then we called them socially and emotionally disturbed children. I'm sure that terminology has changed, but that's what we worked with, SED. So these were some of the kids were suicidal. Some of them in the girls' cottage, we had ages 7 to 18. So that's the age group I worked with there. And then I also moved to, I worked in the school setting where I worked with 9 and 10-year-old boys. I was the mental health technician. That was my job there. I worked there for a year. I also got the love for the classroom setting there. So I was like in the classroom to keep the children under control so the teacher could teach the children. So I was like mainly the disciplinarian in the classroom, the mental health technician. That was also very interesting. But back to daycare, I go off on tangents often. Related to my dad. But so back to daycare, I worked at Friendship House, got burned out. I waited tables for 4 years, which I absolutely loved. During that time is when I became pregnant. Randy and I knew we wanted to, the plan was for me to stay home until our children were in school. At that time, we had no idea how many children we would have. our intention was for me to stay home. During that time, I got a phone call to be like a backup babysitter for somebody. And that is literally, it snowballed from there. So I was a backup babysitter. And then in the year 2000, my first school teacher called, who was actually an extended family member, called and asked if I was, she had heard I was home, watching some children here and there, and asked if I'd be interested in. That was my first full time. And that's also when I realized somebody said you need to look into the rules and regs for in-home babysitting. And so I became state certified in the year 2000. So yes, so that's how that started.
Some husbands, if they got home at a certain time and there were still some kids, babies, kids, whatever, whoever you were, babysitting were still there, they wouldn't, that just wouldn't sit well with them. But it sounds like Randy just was the kind of person that just flowed in with this with you.
Oh yeah, it was yes, Randy is super with children. He has the patience where I don't always have the patience. And it's our personalities just blend, I think, in parenting and foster care. He's more laid back, he's more patient. I'm more the law and order. It works in our marriage, and it works in raising the children. So it just works for us. But he's always been extremely patient with the children and has time for them. It's Randy's after dinner, he's in playing with, Ruby, our little one. He's in there for 2 hours with her playing puzzles and coloring, and where I'm like, I need a break. I've had children all day long. I need the break.
Sure. Absolutely. You do need that. So it sounds like the perfect combination.
It does. It works well.
It was interesting when you told about how old your biological children are, and, Abby and Hannah, and then how young Ruby is. And of course there's Caden, but it's almost like you have a second family. I'm interested to know how the girls, Abby and Hannah, took to you doing this new venture.
So Abby and Hannah were around 10 years old around that age, 10, 11, when we started fostering. And they just took right over. They were the big sisters. They were extremely on board with everything. With fostering, I don't know how I want to say this. With fostering, there's a lot of stuff out in the world that is brought into your home that's very difficult to deal with, it's just very difficult to deal with. But they've also said that living in a home where we fostered, they became a lot more sympathetic, isn't quite the word, but a lot more, I don't know how I want to say that. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. But and both of them are involved with people. Their careers involve heavily working with others. So, I'm sure that their upbringing and all the experience they had with the foster care children was part of that.
Actually, yes. Abby she just got promoted to supervisor position with a local county area CYS. So she has been doing social work for 6 years. So she's on the other end, which is interesting because she says she doing her job, being a foster sister, she thinks she does her job a lot better because she knows the other side of it. She knows the foster family side of it. She knows how the children feel. So as coming from the one taking the children out of the home or making those decisions to have a child needed to be removed, or all the complications that come with bio families. And so she's seen the other side of it. And she says that helps her to do her job as well as she does now. Again, she just got a supervisory position a few months ago. This summer, she's in the supervisor role. Hannah we will have a Dr. Peifer in May. So she is studying medicine and her field is OBGYN, and she really loves oncology. So that's where she's going with that.
That's all really exciting. Now, what I've heard, I've never been involved in this myself, but you hear the horror stories from children who have been in foster care and have been neglected or taken advantage of. And of course, then you hear the other side. You hear of parents who took in someone in foster care and it was a horrible situation for them. But it's not all horrible. I mean, there's a dynamic that can happen that is really, really good. So we need good foster parents for sure, don't we?
Sure. As in every field and every occupation, there's good people and there's bad people. There's people out to, take care of themselves, and there's people that are truly in it to, care for the children in this situation. So yes, there are the extremes, and unfortunately our movies and our media pick up on the bad stories. So those are the ones that are highlighted. Those are the ones you hear about, the horrible foster parents. I admit it's difficult watching a movie when it's that horrible foster family, because that's the rare times. That doesn't happen as much as there's the good families out there. So that there's a part of me that cringes every time, you read a book or read a story or hear somebody's talking about the horrible foster care family that, didn't treat the kids right. But again, that's in every occupation. There's
right.
Extreme.
Yes.
So.
What about some of the misconceptions that people have? The ones who maybe are thinking about it, but they're just not sure. There's a lot of misconceptions. And one is, I don't want to just be in this for the money, or I've seen the ones who are in it just for the money.
We hear, I shouldn't say we hear it. It's out there that foster homes, foster parents like me are in it for the money. There's absolutely no way you can make money doing this. And perhaps if you had 5 or 6 children and weren't properly taking care of them. But let me just back up a minute here and say, so as a foster, we call them resource families now, resource parents. All the names are we're resource families. We buy their food, we buy their clothing, we take them on vacation, we take them to doctor's appointments. And so, yes, we receive a daily stipend, but it's to care for the child. And let me just put this in perspective here. For instance, I have an in-home daycare, and when I charge per child for daycare, which they're here for 9 hours, right? They're here for 9 hours, go home at the end of the day. I don't buy their diapers. I don't buy their wipes. I don't buy their food. Actually, I do feed them, but I also get a reimbursement for their food. But, they go home at the end of the day. My stipend for fostering is less than what I charge for my daycare family. So let's put that into perspective. We don't have to pay for, they have medical assistance, so we don't have to pay for, prescriptions or doctor's appointments, obviously.
But you're still the one who would be taking them back and forth and caring for those boo-boos, or from everything from the little thing to the big thing.
Exactly. And we buy clothing. So it depends on, so I don't want to get too much into the details of everything, but so we fostered for the county, and we fostered for a private agency. And the main difference is so the county, you're working right with the county, and the county is crazy busy because they have everything going on, where a private agency, there's usually more help, there's usually more assistance, and sometimes the stipend is a little bit more through a private agency. But in my experience, the private agency, we don't get reimbursed for a lot of things. So we have to buy their clothing. We have to provide an allowance for the children. Again, if we go out to dinner, we are taking the children. If we go on vacation, we're taking the children. So that's on us. It's not like I get extra money to spend for Disney. If we're taking a child to the beach, we're paying for their meals and paying for everything. So, or the zoo, or a day trip, or whatever we're doing. But that daily stipend, it covers it. It covers it. And we have extra bills. We have extra running around. the car. We're responsible for transportation. Most of these children have visits with family, so it's our responsibility to get the children to their visits.
I would think too, then you have to deal with the any emotions that go along with they're with you, and then they're with their parents, and anything that goes, any baggage that comes with that too. I would think that'd be a little tough sometimes.
After doing this for so long, we know, like, so when a child, after a family visit, there's a lot of the child changes for, it might be a day for the child to get reacclimated back. It's just a normal thing. The child's torn between, or not necessarily torn, but it's different at this house. And then we're going to go see mommy or daddy. And sometimes mommy or daddy is in prison. And sometimes it's a, good thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing. It's not always bad things. I've had lots of stories of where it's, I'll just share this. That one time there was a school function. The mom showed up to pick up the children, and she was intoxicated. And the school would not let the children leave with the mother. And she wasn't willing to give anybody else's name. And the father was actually out of the country on business trip. So what do you do with the children? The mother's being uncooperative. Children can't go home with her. We ended up with the children overnight. Now, the next morning, when mom sobered up and she was fine, the children were fine to go back home. We had the children for the night. So sometimes it's as short as a stay as a night. Sometimes it's as long as a stay as a year, and sometimes it's forever. So
what's it like when you have them for quite a while, and then this is what you want, right? You want things to work out, that the parent, whatever their issues are resolved, and they become a family again. But how is that for you when you have to let them go?
It's heart-wrenching. There's been times when I collapsed on the floor, because my heart was crushed. But that's part of it. I'm the adult. I can handle that. With God's help, we get through it. One of the things, a pet peeve, I should say, is when people say, I could never do that. I could never let them go. So let's back up. What does that really mean? So are you saying you can't handle your heartbreaking? So because you can't handle your heartbreaking, you're not going to provide a safe home and nurture and, a safe home for this child, and nurture the child and love the child? Okay. Is that what you're saying? Are you saying that my heart is hardened and because I can handle it and I've done it over 60 times? I'm not sure what you're trying, not you. I'm not sure what you're trying to say, what you mean by I could never do that. My heart would break. I could never give them back.
That is a way I never thought of it, approached it that way. To think of it, that we need to be bigger than that it's more important. Their needs are more important than a heartbreak that we have to deal with.
I hope what they mean is, I don't know how you do it. It's so hard. But what we hear is, I'm not willing to.
Oh, yeah.
This is a quote from Jason Johnson. Foster care means choosing the pain of a great loss if it means a child received the gain of a great love.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I have another quote. I wrote 3 of them down. It's important to count the costs we will incur if we do foster or adopt, and consider the costs these kids will endure if we don't.
That's awesome. It's beautiful.
And one more. Every child deserves a foster parent whose heart will break when they leave.
Oh my. What about the parents who are willing? They've thought about it. They have the heart for it. They have the maturity to handle it, but they don't think that maybe their home would be approved. I guess there's some kind of approval process. And what about those details that they think, well, maybe they won't think we're good enough, or all of that, or we're just renters. We don't even own our home. Will they still let us foster or whatever the new name is, resource?
The county, so yeah, the resource family. The county is looking for anybody who can provide a safe, loving, nurturing home. You don't have to be married. We have single moms, single dads, single women, single men. We have, you don't have to own a home. You can rent. It is a lengthy process, and it probably would take 4 months, depending on how quick you would be to get your paperwork done. It's invasive to an extent because they will be here. They go through your home. They do a walkthrough. But I've been doing this for 20 some years, and it's like when my caseworker comes every month and does a walkthrough and goes through my whole house and sets off fire alarms and checks the water temperature. And I think, to me, it's because I'm so used to it and I've been doing it forever. It's nothing. And another positive is I've gotten to the point where, this was several years ago, when I knew the caseworker was coming, I'd have to run around and make sure everything was tidy. And then I'm like, what the heck? This is real. Like, this is my house on any given day. Take it or leave it. And really, it's like a joke a bit between foster families. Like, you always have to clean up before the caseworker comes with. Really, you don't have to. They laugh at that because they just need a safe home. Back to your question about anybody can do it, and it can be. You have to be able. You can't do. You have to be able to pay your bills and meet your payments and be able to do fine. Financially, you have to be able to be standing on your own. But it's a lengthy process, but you just do a little at a time, and in 4 months' time, you could be approved. Yes.
So it might seem a little daunting at first, but it's all doable. Just take a step at a time, and you can do it.
Right. Because we've all done it. Every single foster family has done it. So yes, it's doable.
What about are they're not all bad kids? I mean. And even if they are bad, even a bad child needs someone to love them, and maybe that person who's loving them can help change them. So what's it like when you get one that's tougher?
Difficult, but not all the children are troubled. Not all of them are traumatized, but many are. Many are neglected. So it's not, they're not bad kids. They're just put into the situation, and it's never the child's fault. That's another thing. It's never the child's fault. It's because of what their bio parents have done or not have been doing. So they're not all troubled kids, but some are, but they're not all of them. So you can get pretty typical children.
Well, and even our own biological children can be troubled. So it's not like it's always somebody else's kid, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
you're right.
Now you said you had someone, or I think was it a brother and sister? Anyway, 2 siblings. I think that you got like just overnight. Do you have any say? I mean, what if something's going on really special that night and you simply can't do it? Can you say no? Or how about if you want infants or you want 5-year-olds or? You have any say?
So you can be as specific as you want. I could say right now, I want a 2-year-old African-American girl, and don't call me with anybody else but that. And that's fine. That's fine. Okay. The children that we've been willing to accept over the years has changed. So when, as I said before, when we first started, Abby and Hannah were 10 and 11ish. So we were doing 5 and under. We would take siblings. We would and you could say I only have room for 1. Although, they would know that after they do your home study, they would know how much room you have. I'll also say you can't have more than 6. That's also another Pennsylvania state thing. You can't have more than 6 children in your home. So right now I have 2 children living at home. So that means I could only foster 4 children. Not that I would want to at this point in my life, but I could only foster 4 more. So there is a limit to the number of children, but no, we can be as specific as I want. And let me give you this, this will help. So we are currently with Concern, which is a private agency, and they serve 6 or 7 counties, the surrounding counties. I live in Wayne County, so they serve Lackawanna, Luzerne, down towards Philly, Norristown area. They serve 7 counties. In my Northeastern office, Concern has several offices, but I'm with the Northeastern office. So they serve those. So we're getting phone calls. Sometimes my supervisor, Aunt Bonnie, I would get calls, sometimes 3 a day. There's been times when I have 10 children I've said no to in one day. Probably like 3 sibling groups. So I say no all the time. And my supervisor understands where we are. I have an 8-year-old child and a 17-year-old child. We have to be extremely cautious of who we allow in our home, as we're wise parents. So we're not just going to say yes to everybody. Yes, you can be as specific as you want, and you can just, say, there's a list you can fill out. There's some behaviors you'll accept, some behaviors you won't. You can't accept. With me having the daycare, one of the specifics is they have to be able to get along with other children. Many times, one of the criteria is the child needs to be the only child in the home. So that obviously we're not going to get that referral because we have lots of other children in our home. So it's very, you can be as specific as you want, or as general as you want. And ages, you can, we don't do teens. We've never done teens. The oldest we've had is 12. So you can be as specific as you want to be.
Well, that's really good to know. I think it helps prospective parents that might want to do this. You run a daycare. You have 2 adult children that, they might not be living at home anymore, but they need your time and attention. You have 2 adopted.
We're normal people doing hard things, and we're normal people willing to say yes. That's it. So here's the thing. I have trouble with pride, which is hard to say right now, because people tell me all the time how wonderful I am, how wonderful our family is, how I don't know how you do it, how, on and on. So it's easy for me to get, look at me, I am good, and why aren't you doing it? I've struggled with that. That's the truth. We're just normal people. We make mistakes. We screw up. We say things we shouldn't. We lose our temper. We question if we're doing a good job. So we're just normal people, just willing to do a hard thing.
I think that's really helpful to know.
Which in turn means anybody could do it. That's what I want to say. Anybody who God leads.
And I know we need to be willing to be inconvenienced, but I do think that the different lifestyles do lend themselves more or less to doing something like that. Yeah. I
agree.
Your adoptions were children that you were already
fostering. So with that's another misconception, is that to adopt through foster care is expensive, and it is not. I can't speak for every county, but I believe it's true in most counties that it's free. So we have adopted twice. Now, we did have to up front put out the costs for our lawyer. So we did have to put that money up front, but we got reimbursed for it from the county after the adoption was final. So we really, there was nothing out of pocket. We were reimbursed in full for it. So to adopt from a child you're already fostering, it doesn't cost anything.
And to adopt outside of foster care, my understanding is it's extremely expensive.
Right. Hundreds of thousands of dollars it could be.
Mm-hmm. So this could be an answer to prayer to some of you who are feeling like you'd like to adopt.
Let me back up with that, because another thing as a foster family, Fostering is you're providing a safe, nurturing, loving home for the child or children until the parents can do what they need to do to get their child back. That's the number one goal of fostering, is for the children to return home. So there's times it's a debate. It's a debate. There's two sides to the thing. Some places, some people want to foster to adopt. And then some of us cringe at that foster to adopt analogy, because we think fostering is a temporary thing. It is not a permanent. And many of us don't like it when families go into it thinking they want to adopt. As a foster family, it's very important to be supportive of bio families, no matter how screwed up you think they are, or no matter how unfit you think they are. These are just people that have made wrong choices, got caught up in things. There's times when, a woman is in an abusive relationship, and then there's all kinds of things. And I'll say too, our experience is that the majority of it is drugs. Drugs change the person. They change the person that God created you to be. You're not the same. You're not thinking the same. Your brain is all screwed up. So a lot of it is drug related. Children are taken from their homes because of drugs. So, 10 years earlier, this bio mom or bio dad who's strung out on drugs could have been the 10-year-old foster child that nobody took in.
Okay.
Been waiting for a home. So it's not, so back to foster to adopt. If my interest is in wanting to keep this child for myself, then how am I supporting the parents? How am I being supportive of them getting their life together, them doing whatever they need to do? Randy and I we were, when we started, we were one of those families that were like, well, they should have got their act together. What the heck, they can't take care of their own kids. But it didn't take long. It was like one or two children that we had placed when we got to know bio families and realized, oh, they're just regular people like us that have made bad choices. We're all just one bad choice away from getting our own kids taken away. So they're just people needing love and understanding and support. And many of them are not getting it from their own family or their own friends. So it changed everything when we started coming alongside and supporting our children's bio families. Made a big difference in my own life, for me personally. So
you have to be guarding your own spirit, don't you, your heart, and make sure you're. Yeah, I mean, I can see where even that would even continue, that you'd have to guard your heart about anything that's going on. Tell me about the adoption process when you decide that there's someone. How does it work where someone is up for adoption and you can apply for adoption through foster care?
It's just the process, and your caseworker would walk you through the whole thing. Just like any adoption, you would need a home study done, which is, you have to bare your soul, but that's even a private agency, you would have to do the same. So that's just, it gets very personal, from how were you raised to what are your beliefs to, how do you and your husband get along, and how would they interview, like when we adopted KP, they interviewed Abby and Hannah to see make sure they were on board. So it is very, invasive. I don't think that's the right word, but it is very in depth. But it should be.
That's what I was just thinking. Yeah,
it should be.
Yeah, it should be.
It should be. The process typically. So the foster care agencies, the foster care doesn't want children in foster care for lengthy time. 15, 20 years ago, a child could be in foster care for, their whole life, or get in and not be able to get out because of the adoption the way things were going. But I don't know what year it was, but fairly recently, you know, the last 15 years, I'd say is my best guess. It changed to where they put time limits on. So, you know, bio parents they should be given several chances to get their act together to do. It could be from, you know, they need to go to AA, they need to take parenting classes, they need to do this, they need to whatever their caseworker has decided that they, you know, that they need to do to get and the judge, I mean, the judge orders these things, you know, attend, a lot of it is anger management classes, you know, all those things that the judge will say that the parent needs to do. And it doesn't always happen right away. And I have found that, so the agency might put on, like, you know, 15 months and then when they have another court hearing and the parent's not doing it, then they're like, you know, the judge comes down harder on them. Like, you got 3 more months to get your act together, or adoption is going to be the next step. So, and sometimes that's what bio families need, is that kick in the butt to be like, okay, this is it. And they do get their act together. And sometimes it's just too difficult for them to do so. So usually around 2 years is the time, you know, that adoption could happen.
Okay. I want to end with the whole idea of Roe versus Wade being overturned. And of course, now the individual states are battling this out. And how does that affect how many children may be born that wouldn't have been born and may be given up for adoption, or something may go wrong and they end up in foster care, and how we as loving people should be responding to this, thinking, you know, okay, so we're all happy that Roe versus Wade was overturned, but what's the far-reaching implication of this, and how do we fit in with it?
Exactly. I don't have an answer to that. That is a question I raise. So what are we going to do? We have to ask ourselves what we're going to do. We have so many children in the foster care system as it is that need homes, and we can't find Christian homes. We're not finding them. We're going, you know, our gay and lesbian friends are fostering a lot. You know, the children, at least the children, are out of an abusive home, or out of a neglectful home. I don't know what the answer is. And especially if our states start turning over the Roe v. Wade decision in our states, what is going to happen with some of these children who will still may be unwanted? That's a question I have, and I don't have an answer. I don't know. I pose it to everyone.
So it sounds like almost that more of us need to step up to the plate, maybe?
Yes.
That's what you really want to say, but you don't want to be mean.
Well, it's one of those where you can't force this on anybody. And I hope my goal today is to raise some awareness, and to be, you know, to maybe inspire somebody to be like, you know, maybe I can do this, or even look into it. It's not even like you have to follow through with it. You can easily pick up your phone, call your county caseworker, county office, your CYS office, and say, I'm interested in this. And they literally send a packet, like no strings attached. They literally send a packet. And then you can go from there. And it's just baby steps. And if you still are interested, then you can move forward. And if you're still interested, and you can keep going forward. And like I said earlier, you can be as picky and choosy as you want to be. We say no all the time. I cannot even count the number of referrals we've had. And I've said no, and my caseworker still calls me. She knows our situation. She knows what we can and cannot do. And she still sends referrals, even after, 75 no's, she'll still send one.
I thought that was great how you said you have to use wisdom as a parent when you have your own you already have children living that you've either adopted or biologically yours. You have to think about them and what foster child you may want to take in, because you have to use wisdom. I thought that was really good. You can't just say, because I have such a big heart, I'm just going to take everybody they offer. You have to,
or have the room in my house. I have extra beds. So yeah, I mean, I hesitate to say this, but I have a 17-year-old boy in the house. It is not wise for me to take a 14-year-old girl. Like, it's just not wise.
Right.
You know.
Right. So how is there an age limit? What if there's some grandparents out there who think, well, maybe I should step in and try doing this. Maybe I can be a help.
There is no age limit. I've known 80-year-old foster parents.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
It'd be like your grandparents. So that's kind of neat, because grandparents are pretty special too. Yeah. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, there's no age limit. I think it's 18 to, no age limit.
You're kidding. As young as 18?
I'm maybe it's 21, actually.
Okay.
I don't know. I shouldn't say, I don't know.
Okay. Hold that comment.
Yeah.
All right.
21 for sure.
21 for sure. That's interesting. 21. I guess I never thought of how maybe a really young person might be interested in doing that too. So are there any closing thoughts you'd like to leave with us, Sherry?
No, I think I covered everything. I got my quotes in there, and no, just like I just said just a couple minutes ago, if you're interested, if this has sparked, your heart, if there's any interest, you can even message Aunt Bonnie, and she can we can PM each other if you have any more questions. But
absolutely,
no, that's if it's in your heart, children have always been in my heart, so it just was a natural progression for us. But
so if you go online looking for who to call, well, let's say it's in Pennsylvania. We can't speak for other states, maybe, but if you're in Pennsylvania, who exactly? What do you look for?
You could Google it to find out things and find out the differences between going through your county or private agencies. I'm not going to list private agencies, but it would be easy enough to find them online. There's several private agencies, or to go straight through your local county office. You would just call your county, you look it up, your office of your children and youth office. So yeah, through the county.
Okay. So. All right. Well, this accomplishes what's in your heart for it to accomplish, and my heart too, and touches many people, informing them, for one thing, maybe even if they're not going to be fostering or adopting, that it maybe even just changes their attitude, because sometimes we have the wrong attitudes. And so I'm hoping that even that is, people are affected by the things that you said about how we have attitudes about things, and that needs to change. And maybe it's just that tipping point for you to go ahead and make that phone call. Yeah. Let's hope. So Sherry, would you mind closing us in prayer?
Sure.
Okay.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time. We're so appreciative of Aunt Bonnie and what she's doing with these podcasts or whatever. And I thank you, Lord, that she had a heart to ask me about fostering. And I just pray that anybody listening to this who can hear this, who may have at some point thought about it, to at least just talk about it with their spouse, talk about it with their family. It's important to have family support when we step out in this. And I pray that they just take the next step. Thank you for this time. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thanks for joining with me today. This has been a joy, and I really hope that your eyes have been enlightened and your heart's been maybe challenged. And this is Know and Grow. You can't live what you don't know, and you just found out a little bit more today. You know a little bit more, and God may ask you to do something about it. Until next time, you take care. I love you. Bye-bye.